I was at my friend's house and decided to try out angel trumpets. I had heard of where a tree was and went to go get 2 flowers, a bud of a flower and 5 or 10 leaves. I put about 2 cups of water in a pot and boiled all the shit for about 20 minutes. I stained out the solids. What was left was a yellowish liquid. There was only a glass left now, and I drank a bit more than half of it. Half an hour later, I got kinda sleepy, and after that, I had the worst fucking cotton mouth of my life. I felt kind of dizzy and started getting a little confused. All of a sudden, I had to take a piss, but it was the hardest thing ever. It took me about 20 minutes to finish taking the piss. After that, it was a big fucking roller coaster ride. I did not know what day it was. I asked my friend if it's today, yesterday, or tomorrow. I could swear that I had cups, pencils, or shit like that in my hand, but when I went to use them, they were gone. I kept seeing people that weren't there, and when they were gone, I asked where they went. About 3 hours later, I decided to walk to my friend Jay's house. I was walking down the road talking to him, but he wasn't there. That was when the weirdest shit happened. I looked at the wall by the sidewalk and saw my friend walking towards me. He stepped out the wall and I asked, "What's up?" He looked at me, turned his head once or twice, and then melted back into the wall. I was amazed. A couple steps later, I heard him call me, turned around and yelled, "What?" He looked at me, turned around, and then disappeared again into the wall. After that, I saw something on the ground. It was a cat. I went up to pet it, and it melted into a sprinkler head. I saw the same cat about 5 more times, and each time it was different shit. I got really confused, but kept on walking. All of a sudden, I heard a scooter, and it pulled up beside me. It was my friend Lil B. He said, "What's up?" and then I said, "What's up?" And then I was ready to ask him for a ride, and then he vaporized into thin air. This was pretty weird. About 20 yards later was the scariest visual. My dad appeared in front of me. I stopped moving. He asked me what the fuck I was on. I got real scared, held my breath, and closed my eyes for 3 seconds. When I opened them, he was gone. The rest of the night, I kept seeing people and animals that weren't there and kept thinking I was in different places. I've done shrooms, I've done acid, I've done mescaline, and I've done Dramamine. This shit was definitely the craziest. I suppose you'd say we were a ragtag group of punks, skaters, and wooks that coexisted within the same circle of friends. There were about a dozen of us who lived together in a 2-bedroom apartment that was rented to our friend Jason Burns, the only one of us at the time who was responsible enough to have a job delivering pizzas and paying rent. The rest of us between the ages of 18 through 20 were still sort of just floating through life, avoiding anything that resembled adulting. One day, 6 of us were hanging out at Danielle's house, a girl we had met about a week prior. Her folks were out of town for the weekend. She thought it would be a good idea to have us over. Her parents' house was located in the Woodward Park neighborhood, a middle to upper class community of Fresno, California. This house was more in the upper class area. White plush carpets, white couches, beautiful vases, high vaulted ceilings with extraordinary lighting features. It seemed like everything was pure white in this house. Super fancy, you get the idea. Around 3 p.m., a few of us walked to a nearby grocery store for drinks and snacks. We cut through a field of plowed dirt and weeds along the way to make the trip shorter. Myself being an avid user of psilocybin cubensis and LSD in those days, as well as my mother having given me numerous Carlos Castaneda books when I was a kid, certainly helped me to identify various other hallucinogenic plants. As we crossed through this field, I recognized a familiar one growing all around us, Datura. We collected a bunch of the seed pods, filled our backpacks, and took them back to Danielle's house. We sat at a table on the back patio and cut open the pods, removing the light golden brown seeds and collecting them in a large cooking pot. It measured about 12 by 8 inches tall or so. We filled the bottom 2 inches with seeds and the rest of the pot with water. We heated those up for about an hour, creating a very foul-smelling tea of sorts. The 6 of us, plus Danielle, and another girl she had over, all filled glasses or cups to about 10 ounces and began sipping this stuff. This formula was entirely made up on the spot. We didn't have Google to refer to. This is absolutely not how anyone should ever take Datura. It was disgusting and almost impossible to get down. so we decided to pour it all back in the pot and take other measures. We found frozen strawberries in the freezer and a canned fruit cocktail in the cupboards, poured some Datura tea in a blender, and added in the fruit to create a very heinous kind of smoothie. Lee, Doug, and myself were the last 3 people to pull the remaining pulpy tea from the bottom of the pot and pour it into the blender with the fruit to make our glasses. I believe the bottom of the pot had to be the most potent, judging by the 3 of our reactions to it compared to the remainder of the group. I sat on the far right end of an L-shaped sectional couch in the living room. To my left was Lee. Across from us in chairs sat Doug, Mike, Jason, Jeremy, and the 2 girls. Roughly about 8 to 10 minutes after drinking my glass, I began to notice some unusual sensations starting in my stomach and my face. My stomach felt grumbled and warm. My face felt flush. I turned to my left and told Lee, "I think I'm fucked up, Lee." He asked, "What do you mean?" I went on to explain how I was feeling and told him that I think I might have drank too much. He said, "I think I did too." I believe I drank about 8 ounces of pulpy Jimson weed that was blended with fruit to mask the taste. The very next thing I recall was projectile vomiting directly out in front of me, blasting outwards 3 feet forward all over that plush white carpet. I was wearing shorts. Leaning over now, I began to puke down my shins. Socks and shoes coated in vomit. It's running down my legs. It's everywhere. I leaned back and to my right, my face went into the arm of the couch. This all occurred at around 9 p.m., as the sun hadn't been down that long when we drank our portions. The very next memory I have, I was walking down the middle of a residential street. My memory just sort of fades into where I'm walking. I don't remember leaving anywhere. I don't remember making the decision to walk anywhere. My memory just went from puking to walking down the middle of the street. The sky was shifting from black to dark blue. The sun would be rising soon. We were all walking together, side by side. No cars really out yet. We're now in Tarpey Village, a neighborhood about 9 miles away from Danielle's house, where our trip began. I realized we were on my friend Trista's street, and I saw her house on the left. We went up and knocked on the door. She answered and we were talking. I'm not even sure what about. Didn't seem too long after that, a police car pulls up across the street. The officer gets out and walks right up to me. He forcibly turns me around and puts me in handcuffs and walks me to his car. He then puts me in the back seat and gets in the front seat himself. The officer then turns his head over his shoulder and asks me, "What are you on?" To which I answer, "I'm not on anything." He then said, "All right, well, we'll just wait for the ambulance then." I asked, "Ambulance? I'm not hurt. Why would I need an ambulance?" He said, "Just hang tight. They'll be here soon." The ambulance arrives and he takes me out of the back seat and they lay me down face first on a gurney. They put some form of straps in place over my lower back and ankles, and after removing the cuffs, they strap my wrists and head down as well. I don't recall being combative at all during this encounter. I asked the officer as they're loading me up in the ambulance if one of my friends can ride with me. The officer laughs at me and says, "No, your friends will have to stay here." I don't recall any of the ride, but I am, at some point, now on my back on some other type of gurney, with my right wrist bound to the corner in what seems like a leather restraint. My left ankle is bound to the foot of the bed, just the same. Doctors come in every once in a while and ask what year it is, who is the president, where are you. I feel like I'm nailing it. Bill Clinton, Valley Medical Center, 1995. Off and on, I notice to my left across the room that there is a Hispanic man who has been stabbed by his girlfriend, from what he says. He's strapped down the same way as I am, and he's often telling me to shut the fuck up, though I don't feel like I've said anything to him at all. I observe very clearly with my eyes at some point my friend Nate standing with one foot on the arm of my bed and the other foot on the arm of the Hispanic man's bed. He's got a screwdriver and he's unscrewing the speakers from the ceiling. Nate was a clever thief in these days. It seemed fitting. What seems like several hours after I arrived, they made a call to my mother. They asked her, "Does your son have psychotic episodes?" She said, "No, never." So they tell her I'm probably okay enough that she can come get me. They cut me loose from the bed and escort me into another room where my mother and aunt are waiting. My mother hugs me and starts asking questions. The hospital staff hand me some forms to sign and they give me a sock and my belt. This sock was one that I had never seen in my life. It has a last name embroidered on it or something. It seems fancy, maybe something a golfer would wear. I don't know. All I know for sure, it's not mine, and they're trying to send me home without my shoes. I just bought a pair of etnies that cost me $90, and though I spaced the fact that I had puked on them the night before, I knew I wasn't leaving without my damn shoes. They insisted that I came with nothing other than that one stupid sock. Finally, I took the sock. Angry, I just wanted to get out of the hospital, so I went to my mother's house barefooted. I called the apartment that we all lived in, and Jeremy answered, "Lupo! What the fuck happened, dude? Where'd you go?" he said. "What do you mean, where'd I go? Why didn't one of you guys come with me to the hospital?" "What the fuck are you talking about?" he asks. I'm confused at this point because he should know full well what I'm talking about. He was there and saw the ambulance take me. He then interjects with a summary to try and clear things up for me. "Look, you were face down in the arm of the couch all night. We were off in another room. At some point someone says, 'Lupo is gone,' but we didn't figure you went very far because your shoes were by the door." I stopped him there. "What? You have my shoes?" He then says, no. They're still by that door. They had puke all over them. Fuck that." Confused by everything, I decided to call Trista, the girl whose door I was arrested at earlier that morning. She answers and I ask her, "Hey, why exactly was I arrested last night? Do you know?" She then says, "Huh?" So I ask again, "Why was I arrested last night? What did I do?" She goes on to say, "I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, Lupo. I haven't seen you in maybe 3 weeks. You got arrested?" Now my head is completely fucked. My mother has her friend, who is a 911 dispatcher, to look into my arrest in their system, and informs my mom that the call came in that a man was approaching houses in the Woodward Park area early in the AM, looking in windows and knocking on doors. Holy shit. Everything comes together now in my head. I can't remember any of it, but I can only do the math one way. Apparently, I must have pulled myself from that couch in a daze, took my pukey shoes and socks off, leaving me in need of replacements. I made my way into Danielle's parents' room and located one of her father's socks, settling on just one sock, I guess. I made my half-barefooted, half-socked way down the residential street in Danielle's upscale neighborhood. I began knocking on random windows and doors, offering up what I can only imagine to be colorful and friendly 5:52 a.m. conversation to the upper class just around the corner from where I first started out. I never made it anywhere near Trista's house in Tarpey Village 9 miles away. I never spoke to her in person that morning. I thought that I was with all my friends, but I was really alone at strangers' doors. It's no wonder the cop laughed at me. I called Jeremy back and gave him my updated hypothesis of my experience, and he then filled me in on what else took place while I was face planted in the couch and later gone on my one-socked solo spirit quest. As it went, every single person who consumed the Datura cocktail ended up vomiting somewhere in the house. Puke fucking everywhere. Doug was seeing dimensionally flip-flopped, so a corner in a room appeared as a sharp edge corner, say like one on the right as you enter a hallway. That would have been fine, except the sharp edge corners appeared as inverted corners in a room that you couldn't hurt yourself on. Needless to say, Doug busted his face up real bad on those inverted corners, leaving bloodstains all about the house walls. Doug later found a tree that was crafted of silk and I don't know what else, but it was real fancy-like and it reached way up towards the vaulted ceilings until he decided to climb it. So now we have shreds of silk fabric from what was some kind of decorative tree all strewn about the house. Puke on the white carpets. I guess they weren't white, but they were like as close as you could get for a carpet. Jason decided to puke in one of the vases and then made his way into the restroom where Mike was sitting on the toilet, both shitting and puking down the floor in front of him. Jason told Mike, "I need to piss." Mike told him he was stuck and there was no way he could manage to stand up or get off the toilet to allow Jason to piss. Jason then rationalized that the one choice he was left with was pissing as close to the toilet as possible, that being the puddle of Mike's puke on the floor. I'm not sure what the next line of thought was that went through Jason's mind, but our best guess is that it went something like this. If puke were a fire, and my urine can extinguish fires, there are other fires throughout this house, including the one I left in that vase, so I must now try to piss on all those puddles of puke. And he did a pretty good job of that. So we have puke everywhere, a lot of piss in or around the areas where the puke has ended up, shreds of silk strewn about, blood on the walls, and apparently they found Danielle's father's shotguns while rummaging through the house, and I'm really surprised nobody was hurt. Jeremy found a briefcase that belonged to Danielle's mother and proclaimed to everyone that it was stacked with hundreds of thousands of dollars, like in the movies. They broke the locks on it and found only work documents and files, to which he then explained to them were top secret documents and gave them the whole story behind their existence. At some point in the night, our friends Matt, Ashton, and Joram arrived. They were not on the Datura T, and they spent the rest of the night trying to babysit us, but it was all in vain. Too many of us going different ways, fucking up too many things for them to keep up. It's so funny to listen to their telling of the events because they had a completely sober viewing of it all. Matt told me later that they had made a trip to 7-Eleven to get one of those giant fountain drinks with the folding cardboard lid, like a huge milk carton. We were all pretty broken these days, so sharing a large soda among a group was certainly a thing. Anyway, they're getting the soda at 7-Eleven, and a couple super cute girls start chatting them up. They want to hang out with my friends, but my friends are like, "Fuck, we really want to, but we're babysitting a bunch of adults right now, and they're fucking shit up, we gotta get back to them." So they arrive with that huge vat of soda, and Matt says it's the one thing that broke me from that couch. He said I immediately sat up looking at him, just a solid stare, very serious, and he asked me, "Lupo, do you want a drink of this?" Laughing because it's so obvious I do. Datura gives you horrible cottonmouth. Weed cottonmouth isn't even cottonmouth, that's just dry. Datura, it fucks your mouth up. He offers the soda. Apparently, I nod yes and put my hands out to take the cup from him. He puts it in my hands, and I guess I just didn't have any motor skills at all. I drop it. It burst open on the floor below, and now nobody gets a drink now. I didn't fully get my eyesight back for 3 days following the trip. It was really blurry when I would try to read, and I was still seeing the occasional person in the room with me who wasn't really there at all. Sometimes I still wonder who the people were at the house I was arrested at, and what would have been going through their minds. Did they run into me at a store a couple years later, perhaps? "Honey, look! It's that guy, that crazy barefooted one sock guy that was beating on our door at the crack of dawn that one time. Look, he has a wife and kids. He's trying to act all normal now." Datura anoxia, that's one hell of a drug. I highly do not recommend anyone trying it. You never want to do something that will completely remove all of your motor skills, wipe large segments of your memory, and make you hallucinate so intensely that you actually see humans and other things that aren't actually standing there. You actually feel things in your hand that you're not holding as well. That shit is just too much. I could have been taken out by a car while walking in the street, if that's even where I was walking. Yeah, I just really need to stress to you that you'd certainly want to avoid ever giving thought to trying that shit. Look up Datura trips online and try to find a story that's pleasant and calm. You really can't. I'm an experienced tripper. In fact, my first drug experience was peyote. I'm not a heavy user by any means, 2 to 3 times a year. I'm a fairly regular pot smoker, and though I don't drink a lot, I'm an avid lover of beer. Hallucinogens are my love though, and I don't consider them just recreational. For the most part, they are done camping with friends. Tripping is supposed to be a spiritual experience that can be fun, but mainly I consider it to be a reboot of my system. That being said, Datura is now officially off the list of camping supplies. I did my homework. I read about the bad experiences and thought to myself, I'll do this smart. One thing I noticed about the bad experiences was that they usually involve people who regularly use drugs and led unhealthy lifestyles. I don't. Also, people usually seem to be in an urban environment where police presence can be summoned. That was being avoided. I also made sure I had plenty of water. I was not going to smoke any pot or drink. The dose I was using was considerably lower than most of the bad story doses. I didn't officially have any sitters, but my friends were all with me. They were using mushrooms and not Datura. I've tripped with all of them before and trusted their abilities to separate reality from mythology if things got a little too hairy. My mistake was having read a great deal of Robert E. Howard the week prior, Conan, Cole, Bran McMorn, etc. After ingestion, I didn't get the drunk feeling as bad as most people do. I was in fairly good shape. I did start getting the effects quickly though. The dark woods provided a lot of shapes. I surprised and probably scared my friends half to death when I suddenly took up the camp machete and went to do glorious battle with the attacking savages. Of this, I have little recollection. I had been lucid for quite some time, but near dusk, the battle began. This is what my friend described. You went from talking about pygmy tribes and the Yeti into, "They're here!" You jumped up from your log, grabbed the machete, ran through the fire and into the tree line, hacking everything in sight. We were too scared to come to you. In fact, we were worried that you were going to start thinking we were orcs too, so we left. My friends literally fled into the woods to get away from me. I don't remember much until they came across a dead animal, which could have been a whale or a unicorn or a megalotherium, for all I know. I spent a lot of time fighting Picts or Danes or whatever. I read a lot of fantasy books and played magic cards, so goblins, murgos, viashinos, skullbearers, trolls, gnolls, and a whole other assorted menagerie of evil was out to get me. Somehow, I wandered into a swamp and lost my sword. My friends found me hours later. It wasn't hard. I left a trail of hacked brush and I was screaming quite loudly. I have vivid memories of terrible things coming out of the dark for me. The scary thing was, for the several hours I was alone, I didn't drink anything. Luckily, I was only a half a mile from camp. I didn't recognize my two friends when they came for me. I thought the flashlights were witch balls. I fought with them a little, before I realized they were real and had water. I'm sure that I had pissed myself and was real glad to get dry clothes on back at camp. I was in and out of lucid dreams the whole night. I basically ruined their buzz, but being true friends, they found me more amusing than asshole-horrific. I still get dogged about that weekend, but I've been forgiven. However, in addition to the 4-day hangover, I cannot shake the uneasy fear that I could have killed somebody or myself. I literally was a delusional nut, running around with a dangerous weapon in the woods. I could have fell on it. I shudder every time I think of that weekend. Given a choice between doing Datura again or eating an entire sheet of acid, I would eat the sheet. Datura is not something to be fucked with, and I'm a healthy, sane person with hallucinogenic experience. My advice, you probably are not strong enough for it, and if you are, you better not have a violent bone in your body or you can flip out easily. Have sober sitters that will absolutely not permit you to be anywhere near dangerous places or objects, or just don't do it, because the hangover sucks, and it really isn't all that fun.